Fala galera do Esfera do Rock, estou de volta na área, Filipe Duarte, obrigado mais uma vez pela sua audiência, já chega dando curtida, chuva de likes e se inscreve no canal e assina o sininho aí, né, para você poder receber todas as nossas atualizações. E hoje temos aqui a primeira entrevista internacional do nosso canal, que já está prometida há algumas semanas, então chegou a hora de cumprir a promessa. Então eu trago para vocês hoje ninguém menos que Andriy Vasylenko, um dos maiores conhecedores de Metallica do mundo no YouTube. Andriy Vasylenko é ucraniano e já há alguns anos que ele vem fazendo pesquisas a respeito, principalmente do Metallica, da obra do Metallica, fazendo análises muito interessantes que eu particularmente não tinha visto ninguém mais fazer da maneira como ele faz, inclusive analisando, percebendo detalhes ali escondidos nas músicas, coisas que assim provavelmente a maioria dos fãs talvez nunca perceberam. Essa entrevista então foi conduzida totalmente em inglês, com legendas em português. Quem quiser pode então acionar as legendas aqui embaixo sem nenhum problema, ok? Vamos lá então. First of all, I would like to start by asking you if you are familiar with any of our Brazilian bands, some of our most notable Brazilian bands, such as Sepultura, Angra, Crisium, Nervosa, Courses. If you know them, if you like them, you know.
Hi friends! Hi Filipe, thanks for inviting me. Actually, Sepultura and Angra are the only two bands I have checked out, and maybe I heard some more, but those are the two main Brazilian metal forces that I know.
Andrew, I would like to ask you, how did you get to know Metallica? How did you fall in love with Metallica? Why is Metallica so special to you? How did it all start? Please, bring it on.
I heard Metallica like 20 years ago for the first time. It was my brother's cassette. You remember these cassettes? And then like in 2009 I discovered them myself, and then and here I am.
Andrew, your channel has probably some of the most thorough analysis of Metallica's work in general. Your capability to, for example, count how many times a certain Metallica song has been played live, or even how many bass parts are there in Orion or some other song. It is undeniable the fact that you are definitely a die-hard fan. So tell us, how did you find yourself such a nerd Metallica fan?
Well, I appreciate that. That's how my mind works. I'm a scientist. I studied geography. I participated in contests, I did scientific works, published papers, and I like to analyze things, to break them down, to seek order, to seek kind of connections between different things. I applied that to Metallica. I heard songs, I noticed something that I thought nobody noticed, but turned out a lot of people did, and I just kept that in mind somewhere in storage. And then when I learned English and when I got courage to speak in front of camera about these things, I started making these videos. Before that I did a lot of bass covers. That's where my channel came from. I'm a bassist, and Total Cliff was the project I started the channel with. Cliff, yeah, it was my inspiration, and I thought that the internet, the YouTube, lacked this kind of insight. Who was Cliff Burton? How he played bass? How he composed? And I was frustrated, I was disappointed that there's so little information about Cliff. So I tried to gather it and put my thoughts in that, and it's still going. Sometimes I make videos about Cliff, sometimes I played something, I wrote a song to Cliff, Gone Too Far. It's never ending, because that was such a big person, we still try to figure out what the hell he did.
The most well-known Brazilian metal band, Sepultura, they have in a way a connection link with Metallica. This goes back in 1992 when James had his accident in Montreal with the Pirates, and they needed a replacement for, a temporary replacement for some shows. And Andreas Kisser, the guitarist, he was, in a way, highly considered to be this replacement, but the job fell into John Marshall. But Jason Newsted, at that time, they became a close friend to Andreas. He even attended Andreas' wedding a few years later. And in 1998, Jason Newsted came to Brazil, alone to attend the Sepultura show. How familiar are you with Sepultura's work? Do you like them? Do you know their records? Do you know them? What can you tell us about Sepultura?
I haven't heard that story before. Thanks for sharing. And about Sepultura, I'm a fan of them, and I actually accept both eras. Alongside Pantera and Machine Head, this is in my top 3 classic groove metal bands. I appreciate them. I listen to them time after time. I'll make a video about them one day.
Andrew, are you somehow keen to any other Brazilian metal band?
Speaking of other metal bands from Brazil, Angra. I knew them before Kiko joined Megadeth. And I remember me and my buddy, we joked that a lot of sites when Kiko joined Megadeth, they mispronounced and misspelled his last name. And Kiko Luriero, and we knew how to spell and pronounce it correctly. And we was like, we knew him before.
Andrew, you live in Ukraine, which is a country Brazilians usually don't hear much about it, but it is a big country for the European standards. Could you tell us a little about your country, and are there any local metal bands? Are there any metal scene or even some Ukrainian metal band you could recommend us?
Well, it's gonna be a short answer. Metal is dead in Ukraine. There are a few metal bands, but now we don't hear anything about them. Like 10 years ago, there were some bands like Sunrise, Morton, Siegegard, and that was one of the reasons I started to learn English, because I needed to find more people to talk about it, to talk about Metallica, metal, and to find my tribe outside Ukraine. No, basically nothing is happening in my country, even though one of the biggest cover bands of Metallica is from Ukraine, Scream Inc. They are incredible, check them out. But besides that, I have no idea how many people would come to a Metallica concert in Ukraine. Fans are so all over Ukraine. There's no local communities. Only few people from Ukraine know me and watch my channel disproportionately to, say, Poland, which is, say, about the same size in terms of population, but like 5 times more from Poland than from Ukraine. Maybe also because people from Ukraine, Russia, and post-Soviet Union, they don't want to learn English. They are scared about it. They think that I will not learn English because you must speak Russian. That's kind of mindset. I don't know.
In my channel, I have been very outspoken about all Metallica eras, and like you, I praise Spit Out the Bone as one of their best tracks in decades. In your opinion, why some Metallica fans are so close-minded regarding some eras of the band? They keep themselves stuck in a certain era and don't change it for nothing.
They just don't spend much time listening to Metallica, I guess, and due to my being a fan and being a YouTuber, I had to listen a lot to Metallica. With time, the line between albums kind of blurred, so I cannot tell that I, say, hate Saint Anger or hate Load. I find things to appreciate in every song. Even the worst song that Metallica might have written, I can appreciate at least the good production or something else. If you are a fan of Metallica and you don't accept some period of their career, watch my videos and maybe you'll change your mind.
Alright, so now here comes a kind of difficult question. James Hetfield has notably decreased his performance over the last 2 years or so. Besides the fact that he gained weight and his vocal abilities are notably decreasing in many 2019 videos. As we all know, he went back to rehab again in the last months of 2019. Some fans here, myself included, start to lose their optimism on Metallica's future. How do you see this issue? Are you finding ways to remain optimistic? In your honest opinion, how many years, how many records, tour cycles do you believe we can still expect from them before they announce their retirement?
Well, now it's a bit more complicated to answer because, this thing that is going on now. But actually, I'm optimistic. Metallica are not that old yet, and that they released blackened acoustic version in their homes. That proves that they will make stuff regardless. I hope to see them touring at least for 10 years, but now thrash metal is quite a exhausting genre to play on stage. They cannot be doing this 2 hours on stage till they are like 90, maybe till they're 70. But even then, they wanna to preserve their health. But I am optimistic. They will make more music. They will. I hope if the situation solves, they will do concerts. They will be touring, and for sure, music.
Okay, Andrew, so now picture this very hypothetical and imaginary scenario. Metallica sends you a plane ticket to fly over their HQ in San Francisco, I believe, as they are starting the writing process of their next record. And they see you, as a true representative of their worldwide fan base. And they ask you for some opinions on how the record should sound in order to please the maximum number of fans as possible. What would you tell them if you could ever be honored with such a chance?
That would be an amazing opportunity, but I am in no position to tell Metallica what to do. Everything that most fans want is out there on the internet in the form of memes. For example, everyone wants them to play Fixer. My personal suggestion would be you should definitely do another ballad, number 4, maybe another instrumental, but something different, maybe with some Robert's input, his funk stuff. We will accept it. At least I will be promoting it. And that would be another spin for Metallica in their 60s maybe, to develop music genre, metal. That way, that will prove that they still got it, they still can change things in metal and not just leave the status quo. So that's what I suggest. More arpeggios, I love arpeggios. Other than that, that's Metallica. They do their best, for sure.
Andrew, I would like to ask you your opinion on Robert Trujillo. Do you think he was in fact the best option for wearing Jason and Cliff's shoes? I honestly believe that Dave Ellefson from Megadeth, who had no band back in 2002 and 2003 by the way, could have been awesome, but that's my opinion, that's my very personal opinion. We will probably never know that. Do you have any thoughts on that? What is your opinion on that?
Trujillo was my first bass inspiration. He was my teacher because there was so many clips of him playing, more than Jason and Cliff, how he played bass. And that was what I tried to repeat, replicate. And in regard to whether he was the best option for Metallica then, I will make a video soon about it. You will find out.
Andrew, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being so kind, answering us these questions, the emails exchange, By the way, I really hope to see you in Brazil someday. Why not? Maybe you could visit us sometime to attend some Metallica tribute cover bands around, or even come to a Metallica show. You will be mostly welcomed. Of course, after this pandemic thing going on. Congratulations for your channel and all of your research on Metallica's work you have been doing for all these years. So please leave a message to your Brazilian fans, the ESFERA do Rock followers as well. And by the way, the people here in Belo Horizonte, we are about to receive Metallica for the first time this year, 2020, on December the 20th. Of course, if nothing else goes wrong, if the pandemic allows. So thank you so much for having us, and good luck with your channel. See you around. Keep rocking.
Thank you again, Filipe. Greetings to Brazil from Ukraine, and be metal, friends.